This ancient human species has been described as a gorilla head on a human body, a hominid that once walked tall across the plains and forests of East Africa, powerful yet overshadowed by its leaner and more cunning relatives. For decades, its role in human evolution was misunderstood, seen as a dead end, an evolutionary experiment that ultimately failed. But new discoveries have forced a reconsideration. The partial skeleton of a male Paranthropus, discovered near Lake Turkana, has revealed a pair of hands with startlingly human proportions. This find has reshaped the way anthropologists think about Paranthropus, not as a brute herbivore content with chewing on roots, but as an intelligent, tool-capable hominin. And in this new light, the story of its disappearance takes on a more tragic tone. It may not have vanished because it was primitive, but because it crossed paths with Homo erectus, the first of our kind to master cooperation, hunting, and organized aggression. The hands of Paranthropus tell a story that bones alone had never managed to express. The partial skeleton found near Lake Turkana, attributed to a male individual, revealed hands that could have belonged to a human, at least at first glance. The fingers were straight rather than curved, the thumb was long and opposable, and the proportions between the palm and fingers were nearly identical to ours. Workers were astonished at their similarity, noting that the fossil hands were similar in size to human hands, but much more robust. That last detail, robustness, matters greatly, because it shows a creature that combined the dexterity of a human with the raw power of a gorilla. In evolutionary terms, this combination is both rare and revealing. Paranthropus could grip and manipulate objects with precision, but it also possessed tremendous strength in its forearms and fingers. The bones of its thumb were thick and dense, suggesting it could generate enormous pressure between the thumb and forefinger. Shaking hands with a Paranthropus would feel like clasping a human hand forged from stone. This powerful grip would have made it capable of manipulating stone, wood and bone with skill far beyond that of earlier hominins like Australopithecus afarensis.
What is interesting is that we recover a very deep divergence between Paranthropus and Homo. So we're estimating a divergence time between Paranthropus and Homo at around 4.5 million years. This makes sense when you think about kind of the basic mechanics of this analysis, because it's character change over units of time. And there's a lot of character change between these two groups. So we need a lot of time to accumulate that. But I think with some new papers that have been published recently, so that tooth that was associated with the stone tools at 3.3, maybe some other fossils that we might hear about one day soon, I wouldn't be surprised to see much earlier Paranthropus. And I think this analysis is in line with that. Even with a very long ghost lineage, we're still recovering Sediba as the kind of sister to the genus Homo. So, you know, a lot has been said about it's far too young to be in this position. In our analysis, it's still being placed with a long lineage still as the sister to that group.
For a long time, researchers hesitated to credit Paranthropus with tool-making. The association of Oldowan tools, simple stone flakes and cores, with Paranthropus sites in Olduvai Gorge had been known since 1959, but the lack of hand fossils left open the question of authorship. Many attributed the tools to Homo habilis, known for having his face eaten by leopards, lived alongside Paranthropus in the same regions. The discovery of the Paranthropus hand changed that calculus. While no tools were found directly with the new specimen, the anatomy itself spoke volumes. Paranthropus could have gripped, struck and shaped stone with precision grips similar to those of modern humans. While the human-like features were expected, what was most surprising was how much of the Paranthropus hand resembled that of a gorilla. It was a hybrid design, capable of tremendous strength but also fine manipulation. This mix implies a creature that could climb when needed, but also use its hands for crafting and foraging on the ground. Even if Paranthropus was not the first toolmaker, it clearly had the ability. It has been well noted that even gorillas are known to use tools in rudimentary ways, banging rocks or using sticks to reach food. If modern gorillas can do this with far less dexterous hands, then Paranthropus, with its advanced thumb and finger proportions, must have been capable of much more. Paranthropus could very well have performed freehand percussion, the basic action of striking two stones together to produce sharp flakes. In other words, it had the hardware to make tools, and very likely the intelligence to recognize their usefulness. This image transforms Paranthropus from a passive plant eater into an active manipulator of its environment. Fossils of bone tools from the same period, found in eastern South Africa, reinforce this notion. Many of these tools were used to dig for termites or roots, suggesting that Paranthropus used both stone and bone implements to supplement its vegetarian diet. In the cradle of humankind sites of South Africa, where bone tools are abundant, some have been attributed to Paranthropus robustus, a subspecies of Paranthropus. The evidence points toward a genus that straddled two worlds, the ancient one of ape-like foraging and the emerging world of human-like ingenuity. But tool use is not merely a matter of anatomy, it implies cognition. The brain of Paranthropus averaged around 500 cubic centimeters, smaller than that of Homo habilis, but large enough to support basic problem-solving and memory. It was not a mindless grazer, but an adaptable survivor, using its physical might and developing dexterity to carve out a living in the changing landscapes of the early Pleistocene. It may have lacked the sophistication of Acheulean hand axes, but it likely understood the power of breaking stone and shaping bone, an essential step on the long path toward human technology. If the discovery of Paranthropus' hands revealed a creature capable of creation, the archaeological record of East Africa tells a parallel story of destruction. Around 1.5 million years ago, the Great Plains surrounding Lake Turkana were alive with multiple hominin species. Paranthropus, Homo habilis, and Homo erectus all shared the same watering holes and hunting grounds. For hundreds of thousands of years they coexisted, each with its own niche. But such coexistence rarely lasts long in evolutionary history. The Paranthropus were shorter and stockier, standing about 4.5 feet tall, their bodies powerfully built for chewing and climbing. Homo erectus, in contrast, was tall, long-legged, and built for endurance running. It had a brain nearly twice the size, around 850 cubic centimeters, and possessed a mastery of tools that no other species could rival. While Paranthropus specialized in grinding fibrous plants, Homo erectus became the first true generalist, a hunter, scavenger, and traveler who could eat almost anything and live almost anywhere. In the fossil layers around Lake Turkana, footprints tell part of the story. One trackway of 12 consecutive footprints attributed to Paranthropus moves eastward along a lakeshore. Not far away, another set of prints, larger, longer, and with a distinctly human gait, crosses perpendicularly. These belong to Homo erectus. It is an image both ordinary and profound, two species walking the same earth, unaware, or perhaps all too aware of each other's presence. Speculation arises from these traces. The erectus prints move in a coordinated cluster, suggesting group movement, while the Paranthropus prints seem to have been made by a solitary individual. Some researchers have suggested this might record a hunt, a lone Paranthropus foraging near the water, intercepted by a group of Homo erectus hunters. The parallels to modern primate behavior are striking. Chimpanzees have been observed ambushing and killing young gorillas when resources are scarce, often driven by territorial competition. If such behavior is seen among apes today, it is not difficult to imagine it occurring among our ancestors in the fierce world of the early Pleistocene. The fossil record gives further support to this grim narrative. A Paranthropus tibia found at Kubifora, dated to roughly 1.5 million years ago, bears 9 deliberate cut marks, clear evidence of butchery. The marks are parallel and located along the area where the calf muscle attaches, suggesting the flesh was stripped from the bone for consumption. The same site has also yielded Homo erectus remains, linking the two species not only in geography and time, but possibly in predator-prey interaction. Whether the Paranthropus was hunted or scavenged is unknown, but either way, its meat was eaten by another hominin. Louis Leakey once proposed that Paranthropus fossils found near Olduvai tools represented victims rather than tool makers, that Homo habilis, or perhaps Homo erectus, had killed them. His words, written more than half a century ago, ring with prophetic clarity today. In the same way that Homo sapiens would later eliminate Neanderthals and Denisovans, Homo erectus may have exterminated Paranthropus through competition, predation, and control of resources. Imagine the contrast between them. The male Paranthropus, with his sagittal crest and massive jaws, standing in a patch of tall reeds, tearing up tubers from the mud. Across the water, a band of Homo erectus approaches, lean and fast, armed with stones and sharpened sticks. The erectus group communicates in gestures and primitive sounds, coordinating their approach. They throw stones to startle their prey, a tactic that modern experiments have shown to be devastatingly effective. The heavy stones, spherical spheroids weighing 2 pounds or more, could shatter bone or drive an animal to panic. In repeated volleys, they would have incapacitated even a strong opponent. A study of stone balls from South Africa's Makapan Valley has shown that such weapons could kill an animal from over 80 feet away. These projectiles, perfectly suited to human throwing biomechanics, may have been used by Homo erectus long before the invention of the spear. A coordinated assault of thrown stones could easily have driven off leopards, hyenas, or, tragically, other hominids. The lone Paranthropus on the lakeshore would have had no chance. Its strength, formidable in close combat, was useless against ranged attacks from a coordinated band of hunters. After the kill, the body would have been butchered with sharp flakes of stone, just as the butchers did to antelopes and gazelles. The flesh was stripped, the bones cracked for marrow, and perhaps the skull displayed as a token of dominance. The cut marks left behind tell us that what followed was not an isolated event, but part of a broader ecological reality. Homo erectus was rising, both in number and power, expanding across Africa and beyond, while Paranthropus dwindled. The extinction of Paranthropus was not instantaneous. It may have survived for hundreds of thousands of years after first contact with Homo erectus, retreating into wetter, forested environments along rivers and lakes. These refuges, however, were not enough. Its specialized vegetarian diet left it vulnerable to environmental change. As Africa's climate grew more erratic, grasslands replaced forests, and competition for edible plants intensified. Meanwhile, Homo erectus adapted to every shift, inventing new tools, harnessing fire, and cooperating in hunts. By around 1 million years ago, Paranthropus had vanished. It left behind no descendants, no hybrid lineages, no echoes except for fragments of bone and the faint imprint of its powerful hand. In its place, Homo erectus continued to thrive and spread, becoming the first hominin to leave Africa. The planet that had once belonged to the ape men was now the domain of the hunters. The story of Paranthropus is a reminder that evolution is not a march of progress but a battlefield. Strength and intelligence are not guarantees of survival when the environment changes and competitors evolve new strategies. Paranthropus was immensely strong. Its jaw could crush hard seeds, and its grip could shatter branches, but it could not compete with the collective cunning of Homo erectus. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of this story is that the extinction of Paranthropus foreshadows later patterns in human evolution. The same cooperative aggression that may have wiped out the ape men would later be turned against Neanderthals, Denisovans, and eventually ourselves. The drive to dominate territory, control resources, and eliminate rivals is not a modern invention. It is a legacy as old as humanity itself. When the sun set over Lake Turkana 1.5 million years ago, it shone upon a landscape of intelligence and aggression in equal measure. In that fading light, a solitary hand may have once struck 2 stones together, shaping a simple tool for digging roots. Not far away, a group of others prepared their own stones, not for foraging but for killing. The first had the mind to make, the second had the will to conquer. One would disappear into the silence of prehistory, while the other would inherit the earth. That is the story of Paranthropus, a being of immense strength and quiet intelligence, whose hands were capable of creation, but whose fate was sealed by the rise of a clever and ruthless rival. The discovery of its human-like hands reminds us that evolution is not just a tale of advancement, but of loss. The last of the ape men was not defeated by weakness, but by the tragic power of our own beginnings,